Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insight, tech tips, and real stories from the field. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. I am Pat Finley, and tonight I have a very special guest, Louise Kellar from UEi Test Instruments. I got to hang out with Louise quite a bit in February in Florida. We had a blast talking tools, combustion analyzers, everything UEi has to offer. And we recorded an episode, her showing some stuff off, and I'm excited to have her back on. We're going to tell more about her story and what she does and how she got into this industry, because I think it was pretty much by accident, wasn't it?
Oh, it was completely by accident.
But first, if you need UEi instruments, I know where you can get those. This episode is brought to you by TrueTech Tools. Looking for top quality HVACR tools? TrueTech Tools is here to help. From instruments to hand tools, in stock and shipped fast, they have you covered to get the job done right. Visit TrueTechTools.com. Quality tools, essential support. So what is going on, Louise?
Oh man, I'm actually excited that we're going to do one. I know at AHR that we got to record, we got to hang out at the booth. We had some mishaps that we were laughing at a little bit beforehand. So just a little bit of background, not even a background about me, but Pat and I started talking. It was probably late last year or earlier this year. You had reached out and was like, hey, love what you're doing. Would love to, do something at AHR. And then it turned out that we had a whole lot of events that week, right? We had HVAC school symposium. Mm-hmm. We were at the tactical awards, and then we were at AHR. So from being a guy I had never met in person, I think I hung out with you 6 out of 7 days in a row.
Yeah, I think pretty much the only day we didn't hang out was that Saturday between the symposium and the tactical awards.
Yeah.
We thought about it. I think our plans just kind of fell through. I think I just stayed at the pool all day, and I'm not sure what you had going on. But yeah, we were hanging out at the after parties everywhere else. I turned around, there you were. So you were getting around. But you have such a great personality, and that's what I love about you. You're outspoken. You're not afraid to be you, authentically you. You don't care. Everybody else can kiss your butt. Your Kentucky Derby outfit, I absolutely loved it. I was like, this woman is an absolute treasure, and I'm glad I got to know you because you are an amazing person, Louise.
Oh, I am so glad that we got to hang out and I got to know you because it was an absolute blast. And I will say, yes, if you haven't seen, you can probably find them on my Facebook. I do have I had a new hat this year. I didn't have to recycle one of them, even though I wasn't at the Kentucky Derby. I love hats. And so you, though, at the Tactical Awards, you were all dressed up and you had a hat with your outfit. So you clearly like some hats too, right?
Yeah, when I do get to dress up, I do prefer a cowboy hat. And generally, it doesn't let me down. This year, generally, if I wear the hat, I win. This year, I won the hat, and I didn't win. Luckily, I can't complain because I was nominated for. We were nominated for Podcast of the Year, and I was up against two good friends of mine, riding with HVAC R&D and Brett Wetzel of Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. If I was going to lose to anybody, I'm glad it was to one of my friends. So the black one maybe wasn't so lucky, so I may have to go back to the straw hat next time. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, that's okay though. You looked very nice. The Tactical Awards, everybody just looked at. It's so nice to see the industry all dressed up. It's a whole different perspective than what you find out that we actually clean up pretty well.
Yeah, I just wasn't so thrilled about that Florida heat and humidity in a suit
jacket. Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to say I kind of miss that Florida heat and humidity as it's so cold, as we were talking backstage this morning or this 5 minutes ago. But yeah, it's a little cold, rough summer for us here.
Yeah, it's wild. We were just talking, we're both in the Indianapolis market. And, this past weekend was the Indy 500. And generally, that's like the day everybody gets sunburned, heat exhaustion, dehydrated. Dehydration is probably from the beer and the booze. But, I like to blame it on heat. But generally, it's so hot and miserable. And this year, everywhere you look, people were in sweatshirts and light jackets. And I'm like, this is crazy. Because generally, we're opening our pool. I'm in the pool drinking some beers, having some fun. And not this year. I think maybe next week, middle of next week, maybe able to get in it. But I'll be gone. So.
Yeah, I'm not used to it. So, it was interesting. Actually, earlier today, I had some windows open because it was at least a little bit nice enough, but apparently it got so cold and I hadn't turned off my heat. I had it down low and I heard my heat kick on. And I'm like, this should not be happening in the middle of or the end of May for us.
Yeah, generally it's like into April, you're like, I'm turning the AC on. I can't handle humidity.
Yeah. So it's been an odd season. But it is, I guess, what it is. Hopefully it'll stay warm longer for us and I'll be a happy camper.
Yeah, I need some warm weather to crank out some overtime, get to use some of those UEi tools. So let's get into it. UEi, people do not know, you guys are a pretty big company. I've used some of your meters for years. I've been using C161 for the last couple of years for some flue gas analysis on some combi ovens. I use it a little differently than most people use them for, but you guys have a huge lineup of tools. And actually, I just bought a new. Of course, I'm gonna forget what the model number is, but I had to.
It was the IRT 803 or 807. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I've got some stuff where I've been doing this 20 years. I've never had to test. No, I can't remember what it is. I'm striking out here, but I've never had to test like windings or anything for shorts to ground. Like I've generally been able to find it, which is a normal meter. But I had a situation where a manufacturer wants something tested like 10,000 volts. I was like, what am I going to test? I was like, what can I test with this? I was like, so I went looking and I was like, well, I don't really like giving Fluke my money. Just personal preference there. And you guys had something that worked, and I ordered it. Luckily, I didn't need it because I ended up finding it was pretty obvious where it was short at the ground, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I look forward to throwing out a truck, getting to play around with it and test it out here soon.
Yeah, I think you'll like it once you really start to work with it. So I'll give you guys just a little bit of history on UEi Test Instruments. So we're actually a second-generation family-owned business in operation for a little over 70 years now. Almost all of the products that you see are designed and manufactured by us in facilities that we own. So when I'm talking about like all of our combustion products, those are made for us in our factory in the UK. When I'm talking about a lot of our meters, manometers, those type of products, those are actually made in a factory that we own in South Korea. So we get to design and manufacture almost all of our tools, which has been also really helpful navigating the last couple of years, which have been a little interesting. The other thing, though, that we do is that all of our recertification. So I'm here in Indianapolis. Our recertification lab, which is ISO certified, is also here in Indianapolis, and it's where we do all of our distribution. So that's a little bit, and I just kind of happen to luck myself in there. But we are a full line of test instruments, from cooling products to heating products and everything in between.
Yeah, that's really cool. We talked about the Indianapolis thing, and I didn't realize, what they actually did there. So, my favorite selling point is, a lot of people don't know you have to have your combustion analyzers recertified and gone through every year. There's a few companies out there that say you don't have to, but I'm not going to trust that. People's lives are on the line, not necessarily in my, business, but the home comfort business or the comfort business, that's a big deal. So, let's talk about the service. If you have to send say my C161, it's acting up, or hey, it's time to send it in. What's the process?
Yep. So we tried to make it as absolutely easy as possible for you, because we know that you're busy. And a lot of times when you need your analyzer, you need your analyzer. But you kind of hit a nail on the head when you said a lot of people don't realize that they need to be sending those in. We actually wanted to give everybody a little bit of incentive to send in their combustion analyzer. So every year you send in your combustion analyzer, we actually give you another year warranty for up to 10 years from the date of purchase. So you start out with the 1 year, then it rolls, you send it in, get another year, and so on and so forth. up to 10 years for data purchase, which is pretty good because I don't know many test instruments that'll give you a 10-year warranty. We also know that you're really, really busy. So Indianapolis, they redesigned their structure and it is just absolutely amazing what they can do out of there. So analyzers land on, say, a Wednesday morning. They're going back out on a UPS truck Wednesday afternoon, which is same day turnaround. So you being in our local market, right? You send it in on a Monday, it hits the lab on Tuesday, it's in your hand on Wednesday. We also took all of the stress of trying to figure out when you, how to send it in, right? So you have to send it in. Do I do UPS, FedEx, USPS? Like there's just a lot of different options. So we actually, we have an agreement. We give you the UPS label so you don't even have to think about it. You just basically put it in a box and send it to us. And then we know that not everybody remembers that you're supposed to do that. So we encourage you to register your analyzer when you buy it, and then you can go through all of that stuff on our website. But we'll send you an email to remind you, and it's not an aggressive, like they're not going to email you every single day for 2 months, right, where your Google starts filtering it out or anything like that on you. So extended warranty is what you get, same day turnaround service. You get the shipping to and from, and you know what you're going to pay for it before you ever send it in, because we're very transparent on our website about how our pricing is for you. So, and that program, by the way, I have to say, I was really excited because I get to talk about it a whole lot. It won a dealer design award for 2024. So it was one of our 2 products that won a dealer design award for 2024. So I think that says a lot about our operations and how we want to make sure that you're maintaining your instruments.
Nice. So Catherine Donahue has a question. She says, as an instructor, how often should I be sending in the test instrument?
Every year. So the way combustion analyzers work is that there are sensors that are in them. Those sensors need to be checked and made sure that they are within the specs, because unfortunately sensors can just naturally drift. It's one of the reasons that almost every manufacturer tells you should send it in for its recertification.
Yeah, and most of the time these things they're in their cases, but they're still bouncing around in the back of a truck going down the highway through some nasty neighborhoods. Indiana potholes are terrible right now. This thing's
they will swallow a car.
Yeah, these things are bouncing around the back of trucks, so you want to make sure they're calibrated. Like I was saying earlier, my use is in a restaurant. I'm dialing in a combi oven. I'm a pre-mixed burner. I'm trying to get anywhere from 8.6 to 10.4 on the CO2. That's depending on the speed and the manufacturer, but that's a good baseline area I'd work with. We're under a hood, that kind of stuff. But, in a home, you want to make sure, there's no issues and that kind of stuff. People's lives are at stake. So you want to take that serious and have things sent in every year. Plus, you have that stand behind you. If something does happen, like, hey, I sent this in. Here's where it was, it went through. Here's my testing procedures and everything. So you can't be too safe with this.
Yeah. And honestly, anything that is designed to test carbon monoxide, right? That's one of the biggest things that combustion analyzers are designed to test. You really want to make sure that's dialed in, and you want to make sure that you don't accidentally have a dead sensor. You want to make sure it didn't drift, because not only are you putting somebody's life on the line if there is something that's going on that you didn't detect, you could be leaving them injured, because that's one of the other things that I talk a lot about in my trainings is the dangers of carbon monoxide, and people don't realize it. And I know we've had a few conversations just about what you see in the restaurant industry, right? Like ovens that don't have the exhaust hoods turned on, and what happens when you walk in there.
Oh yeah, it's instant headache. I've been around enough where I know I can just kind of smell and like I can sense it. And the first thing I do if I start getting a weird smell and I walk in a restaurant and it's gas appliances, I'm like, the hood's not on. Well, that sucks a lot of heat in the building. I'm like, well, it's gonna save your life, so I turn it on. Like, you like headaches, you like feeling groggy, you like fighting to stay awake on the cook line. Like, turn the exhaust on, dude.
Yeah. It's scary though, because what you're smelling is actually not even actual carbon
Oh yeah,
monoxide.
yeah.
It's just some of the other byproducts,
Yep.
because it's tasteless, it's colorless, and it's odorless. And there are so many stories that I've had techs
Mhm.
tell me, like, they've gone into a basement and started to feel ill while they were down there working on like a furnace or a boiler, and they didn't have the proper detection on them to know that they were slowly getting carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah,
And that scares the crap out of me. I'll be honest. Like, it's heart wrenching, the stories that I have had to um, hear.
I bet. So does UEI make like a little personal like device you can wear, like a little alarm or whatever? Do they make one of those?
So we have an ambient air CO detector,
Hmm.
our COA2. It's preset alarms. So like your combustion analyzer, you'd start it up outside, throw it on your bag, throw it on your belt, wherever. But do it outside in the ambient air, just like your analyzer. You walk in, it's going to start reading. It has the preset alarms on it. Those preset alarms, like 1 to 9 parts per million, because ASHRAE says you can have up to 9 parts per million in a residential facility. So it'll blink at you green. When you get 10 to 34 parts per million, it'll flash at you blue. And then 35 parts per million is actually where they'll generally, like, first responders will start evacuating a building. At 35 parts per million, it starts flashing at you red and really angry beeping at you.
Really angry people. That's good to know.
Angry beeping, yeah. It's not a happy beep. It's an angry beep.
That's good to know. So you touched on something there I wanted to get into. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I'm probably, I'm guilty of this. I bring it in the case and I open it on the counter in the kitchen. I don't have any appliances running, but I turn it on in the kitchen and go. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You need to open this thing up at your truck, pull it out of the thing, and turn it on and let it acclimate to the outside air before you bring it into the environment you're in.
Yeah, your analyzer's doing a couple of different things though when you're sitting there, right? When you're turning it on outside in the ambient air. So one, you're getting, like, it's just getting acclimatized. Two, it's going through a purge if there happens to be any additional, like, gases left on your sensor. But it also takes like a baseline of that ambient air. So if you start it up in a place that has a lot of CO already, you're really risking having errant results when you do your actual testing.
That's good to know because yeah, it's just it's baselining the area you're in, and if
Hmm.
you're already exposed to some stuff in there, it's gonna throw those readings off. That's good to know.
Yeah, and when you're really trying to dial in those readings, that's really important for us.
Sweet, sweet. So your main, let's just okay. So let's back up here a little bit. How did you get started at UEI? Like, because that wasn't. I mean, that I'm sure that was not your goal. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go work for UEI. I don't want to teach people how to use combustion analyzers and other tools. I doubt that's what you had in mind when you got there.
You know, it's not what I had in mind when I got there. I don't know what I really expected. My background was retail management. I worked in optical right before I came to UEI. UEI wasn't always based in Indianapolis. We still have a facility, offices out in the Oregon area, but they had decided to move their facilities. I think it's been 11 or 12 years now, though, that we've been in Indianapolis. And an opportunity arose. I heard about it. I interviewed for it. I did things such as I started out in our customer service. I had a lot of background in sales and management. I was one of our regional sales managers for 7, 8 years, because I'm going on almost 10. It'll be 10 at the beginning of July.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So, and one of the things, though, that I learned being on the sales side is that there were actually a lot of requests for training. There was also requests for people who maybe have never been in the field, never really had to talk to, um, techs and those type of things, but they work for us, right? Because there's all types of jobs within UEI. So I started creating some trainings internally. I also started creating trainings that I could give to contractors, to wholesalers while I was on that sales side. And it turns out that there is a huge need in the industry for continued training. So it eventually, at the beginning of 2024, I was offered the position to be a full-time trainer for us. And I said, absolutely. The training side, I think you already understand because we've had some chats about it, but the training side of the industry is a very unique portion of the industry. And I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Training is a weird thing. I never thought I'd get into it, and I enjoy it. It gives me a chance to interact with people I've probably never interact with, otherwise. I get to travel and do some things. And I mean, you're always all over the place. Like you're east, west, south, north. I mean, you probably go into other countries sometimes, I imagine. Who knows where you're at?
So I am national, so I stay stateside. But I love to travel. Traveling for work is just absolutely amazing. Getting to meet people from all over the country. And I think it also gave me a different perspective because I've lived most of my life in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a very specific of this is how things work. And then, you go out to the East Coast where suddenly I'm winding up with contractors who are doing a whole lot of oil all of the time. And maybe that's their specialty. Or you go somewhere in Arizona and they're like a furnace, a boiler. What in the world? We don't even.
Mm-hmm.
So, it gives you a little bit of a different perspective on the industry as well. But I can't imagine. I never actually really thought that I was going to, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I wanted to be in a training role, I probably would have told you no. I have a lot of friends that are in the teaching profession, all the way from like elementary school up to college professors. And I never thought this was the route that I wanted to go into, but I have to tell you that it is a very fulfilling part of what I get to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen, people have been doing this for years and years and years and didn't realize, hey, you're supposed to check this, or hey, combustion analyzer, what's that? Like, oh, you mean you just fixed this and it turned on? You thought you were good? I mean, there's so much more than just fixing things, and especially all this equipment anymore, is multi-stage, VFD driven. I mean, this equipment's getting crazier and crazier, and you got to be able to set it up right. Just installing it's not doing your part.
Yeah, and I absolutely love those light bulb moments
Mm-hmm.
where I get to teach somebody and you see that light bulb go off and they go, I never looked at it at that perspective. I never thought about it from that angle because not necessarily being from the industry, I feel like sometimes the way that I teach something might not be the same way that you would get if you were to go through a trade school or you were in the field learning from somebody. One of my most requested classes that I do actually is I take a walk around the dial of your multimeter and we just call out what the symbols are. We're not going to go in, we're not applying it, we're not doing any, but it's amazing how many times that somebody has a meter even that's been in the industry for a while and they didn't know all of the functions that they could do or all of the things they could have been testing because they didn't know. And so my perspective, instead of teaching it when that application comes up, I'm giving you the ideas of where you might use that application or what that symbol is, because if you're not testing diodes all the time, you might not quite remember what that symbol looks like. So there's a lot of that because a lot of people you learn on the job. And if you never had to do it, you won't know what that function is.
Yeah. And a lot of us, I mean, it depends on what you're working on. If you don't use all those other functions, you don't know what they are. Like in my world, it's a little different because I'm checking capacitors, I'm checking diodes, I'm checking, microamps, I'm checking millivolts, I'm checking everything. So my meter gets a pretty good workout. But some places, all you're checking is resistance, amperage, 120, 208 AC, 24 volt AC, and that's about it. Like that's all you check. And I'm like, man, that's a first step for me.
Well, and that's part of your troubleshooting that you have to go through. I'll tell you, one of the biggest things I did, and I guess I took it for granted because it was on almost every meter that we had. But I was standing somewhere in the country at a wholesaler somewhere, and there was a contractor who actually came in during the time that I was doing my counter day, and he came in claiming to have a bad capacitor 3 times in a row. And I get it. Every manufacturer, like no manufacturer of anything is 100% perfect 100% of the time. Like it's just the reality. But I was like, 3 times in a row, like that seemed a bit extreme. And I said, I'm just standing there with my, meters on a table. I was like, well, did you test it? What's it testing out on? Because like now I'm
Yeah.
invested in this story, right? Like I want to know,
You're like, "How?"
like
I want to know. Yeah, exactly.
and if it really is 3 capacitors in a row, maybe that's not the brand I want to make sure that I don't have in my house, right? Like,
Mhm.
so I go, okay, well, I go, did you test the capacitor? And he goes, no. And I said, okay, well, pull out, where's your meter? And he pulls it out, and I said, all right, so we're going to turn it to capacitance. And he goes, I don't know where that is on my meter. Well, he didn't know where it was actually. Part of the problem was his meter didn't actually do capacitance.
Mhm.
So I got to pull out one of mine. I got to show him exactly what he was looking for. I showed him how to test it. It turns out all 3 of them were perfectly fine. It was not the capacitor. There was something else going on. But
You get a
that
bad.
was 3 times.
Yeah.
3 times, though, that he had to come back to a wholesaler. And sometimes, like, I don't know how far away his job was.
Mhm.
Was it 10 minutes around the corner? Was it 20 minutes each way? Like, you don't know. So by having the right tools that you don't have to keep going back and forth on is also going to save you time, right? Because time is money.
Yeah, it's amazing what some of these guys out here do. I'm like, and you've been doing this for how long? I'm just like, I'm mind blown by it. It's just.
Well, and I think some of that, though, like I have to take things in perspective,
Mhm.
is that if nobody ever told you how to do something,
Oh yeah,
or
exactly.
that's how you needed to do something, I can't fault somebody for not knowing. Now, if you know and you've sat through my courses and you've gone through like the dangers of CO, and then I find out like one of your customers was injured because you didn't actually do the tools, now I'm going to be upset with you. But if you're taking the right precautions and you're doing the right things, and really, there's so many avenues now to learn too. Like, think about even like I think about 10 years ago when I started in this industry, YouTube was around, but it was not as prolific,
Mhm.
especially in the training world, as it is now. The ability to do virtual things like this. I mean, if you look at a podcast from 10 years ago, they are not nearly as nice and polished and clean and crisp as they are today, right?
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, there's tons of information out there, but like you said, if they've never been showed or never been instructed or never been asked, they don't know. I mean, a lot of these guys are just forced to do things by their bosses or companies they've worked at, and they just kind of have skated by. And it, like you said, maybe it's not intentional, maybe it is intentional, but um, you
Yeah.
know, you can't always fault somebody for it, I guess.
No, and I think that's why one of the things that I always try to do is make my training as accessible as I possibly can. Unfortunately, I don't get to be everywhere across the country all of the time. Um, I wish I
Since
could,
it's cheap,
but right, it doesn't work as well. Like I do enjoy coming home periodically.
Mhm.
But making hybrid trainings, having one-on-one trainings, whatever I can do to help showing up, because you saw me at the symposium. I had one at AHR, and I did the podcast with Brian Orr at AHR. I was at HVAC Excellence where I went over my meters. And I've taught my dangers of CO and combustion a multitude of times this year. Um, and it's amazing, though. One of the things that I will point out, so I do know, I was kind of looking over there in the chat, and I know that we actually do have some trade school teachers that are in our presence watching today. And it's interesting, though, because HVAC Excellence is a Train the Trainers convention.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of trade schools, high schools, independent schools, colleges. Like, I mean, it just kind of runs the gamut. And there's contractors there too. And it's interesting, though, is sometimes it's just how their curriculum was written.
Mm-hmm.
But other times it's just they don't feel like they understand it well enough. But a lot of times I find out that things like CO and combustion are really just taught as a theory, and
Mm-hmm.
the kids have never ever placed their hand on a combustion analyzer.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think you know, ESCO, HVAC excellence. I'm gonna try to go next year. I've seen it the last couple of years. I'm like, man, I gotta get to this because it's just so much knowledge is shared there. And the same thing about the HVAC school symposium. I've always heard about it. I wanted to go, and this year just made
Yeah.
perfect sense because we were already going to be in Orlando the following week. It was easy to set up and do, and I was really I'm a kitchen tech. I don't do comfort. I mean, I do a little bit of comfort, but not a whole lot. It's nothing residential. It's only for very few customers we have that want us to do it. And I was like, there's no reason for me to go. And I went and I was like, I sat through some training. I was like, man, I learned so much. Like it carries over. It's really cool to see that it does carry over to what I do.
Well, and I think that was one of our initial conversations when we started talking is I don't know a whole lot about the commercial kitchen realm. And I said, well, I'll do it, but do I have enough to talk about? And you started explaining it out to me. And like, that was my light bulb moment, right? Where you started going, no, we use all the same tools.
Yeah.
A lot of the applications are exactly the same. It's just on a different scale or it's a little bit different equipment. And one of the things I've had some of the teachers ask me is, if you could tell a student something, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, get into the industry. It doesn't matter where you start. There are so many avenues that you can go in. If you would have, just like me, I wound up going into customer service, but now I'm our training manager. Most people aren't where they started
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many different avenues, whether you want to be in residential, you want to be commercial, maybe you want to do only refrigeration. Some people specialize in airflow. I mean, there are just so many different facets of this industry. And if you don't want to be bored, it's a great industry to be in because if you don't like the portion you're in, there's another avenue for you.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, oh, what if I don't want to be a tech? I'm like, well, you don't have to be a tech. You can go in the office. You can do training. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I'm thankful that the HVAC side's kind of adopted, the commercial kitchen side in it, and because it's a lot of crossover, but it's the same thing. You can be anything in this industry you want to be. You don't have to be a technician. You don't have to be a trainer. I mean, you can be an installer. You can do whatever you want. That's the great thing about it. The sky's the limit, and the limit is only yourself. So,
I I started a lot of my trainings had to do with CO and combustion. That was kind of where the sweet spot was for me. Then I moved into the meters, and then it's just amazing how many more things, right? Because then you want to learn more, you want to know because they um, all interact with each other. And if one part isn't done, and people also don't realize like how much engineering goes behind the HVAC world that nobody really tells you about because it all just kind of quietly happens. And
yep.
when it works really, really well.
That's what I say about my industry is like people don't know we exist because most of the time we're coming in and going out of the back door of a restaurant, and in a restaurant they don't want their customers seeing you there because they think something's wrong. Like, well, what's broke? What am I eating? So we're escorted in and out the back door, nice and quiet, and no one knows we're there. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean everybody needs maintenance, right? Like just like I have, you have somebody who comes out and services your air conditioning and your furnace every single year. I would assume that restaurants should also have somebody who comes out and periodically inspects the things, especially if you're feeding me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be sick because a freezer or a cooler wasn't kept at the right temperature. They weren't cooking things. Like, I want to make sure that that is all good to go.
But luckily, there's a board of health, and they're supposed to keep temperature logs on everything. Now, let's just say not everybody is honest with their temperature logs, because I've seen logs where they say they're the same temperature for 37 days straight, and I'm like, that's impossible. It's like
Yeah,
36 degrees, 36 degrees. I'm like, no, like you guys are just pencil whipping it. So,
yeah. And that's one of those things. But I want to make sure that our food is in good source, just like I want to make sure that customers aren't getting poisoned by CO. And there's all of those things that when they're working well, it's really, really great. But it just takes one to go awry for something to be off for us. So I see it looks like we have a question.
Yep, EC2Fix. He says, in the military, I had to go through a rather intense instructor's course before becoming an instructor. Pat and Louise, is there something required on the civilian side? As far as my side, no. It's just being able to explain the knowledge of what we do and having an experience to back it up. I don't know what you've had to go through, Louise, to do what you do.
So there is not any specific requirements to be able to do that, especially I would say on the manufacturing side. There wasn't anything specifically required of me to go through that. There are things that I have done though, because I want to make sure that I am providing things in the best manner for everybody. So one of my big accomplishments last year, I went and got my EPA 608 license.
All right.
Good. I did. I was like, you know what? Like, I feel like if I'm going to be talking about these products, I better be able to, go buy some refrigerant if necessary. I did. I went through, I took the appropriate courses. There's a lot of resources that we also do have as instructors through different places to help us further. And, some of it, though, there's not a specific requirement in most of the field. Now, some of the trade schools might have something that's a little bit different that they want, but even a lot of the trade school teachers I meet, they were in the field for 20 years. They were in the field for 30 years. They decided they wanted to change a pace, and the trade schools would take them on because of their experience. So it may vary state to state, but in the state of Indiana, for what we do, there is not.
I know ESCO offers a lot of things to help,
yes,
help to not really train, but to define what an instructor is and help, work that way. And there's some stuff I want to go through. I was talking to Clifton Beck about a month ago, and I reached back out to him and have him on. But to go through some stuff they have, because I think it'd do me a lot of good in what I do. Because the older I get, the more training I'm going to be doing. So I think it just helped to, learn different training styles, and not necessarily it's how to teach; it's how to recognize people's learning styles. I think is a big part of it, because not everybody learns the same way, and that has been a huge struggle for me when I first started teaching refrigeration for Sofessa. Is like, hey, this guy may be getting it. This guy, could probably almost be up here with me, and this guy has no idea what's going on. And how do I keep all three of these guys engaged with the same material? Is pretty rough to do sometimes.
It is. And, one of the biggest things you said that you had reached out to Clifton, another one of our fellow Hoosiers here.
There's so many people in this state. It's amazing.
Yeah, we are a hot spot of
yeah.
It's very interesting though, because there are so many great instructors in our industry. And I think one of the biggest things that I personally have done is I've tried to catch a lot of them and actually watch their presentations. And when I first started out, it wasn't even necessarily for content. It was almost for style. What makes this person so absolutely successful when they do a presentation, right? So you don't want it too PowerPoint heavy, but sometimes there's only occasions where that's your only access to have, is to be on the PowerPoint heavy. Unless, if Ty was here, he'd be like, no, you just carry a big giant trunk full of stuff and you go on. But he's very engaging and very knowledgeable about that. And, you never see the same exact presentation from him twice, right? But that's his style. If you watch Eugene from ESCO, he has, a little bit of a hybrid presentation that he's going to do. Some people are very successful just doing some of the PowerPoints. So it's trying to figure out how to engage that. And I have taken some of the ESCO courses to help better make, because every now and then there's a light bulb moment of something I didn't realize I was doing, or something that I was like glaringly missing. So if you go back and you watch like one of my old videos from like 4 or 5 years ago, the content hasn't changed. The delivery has definitely changed, though.
That's a good point. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Indiana, every time I turn around, there's someone else from Indiana. I'm like, holy cow. I was like, you live here, you live here, you live here. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's our little bastion of the Midwest of
Mhm.
HVAC and R and commercial kitchens, and yeah, it's been very interesting.
So I know you enjoy traveling and you enjoy meeting new people. I mean, you have that personality where you'll talk to anybody. You love just to share your knowledge. You love just to interact with people. What's some of the cool places you've been and some of the people you've met along the way?
Oh wow, I that is a tough one because so I travel for work, but I also travel for fun.
Hmm.
I just love to travel. You're absolutely right. I love traveling and I love meeting people, and I love sharing the knowledge with everybody whenever you can. I've been fortunate. I will tell you, I've been personally to all 50 states.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Did
and
you with all the little individual magnets on the board or the stickers?
I didn't do the map. I didn't do quite the map. Um, but it was a challenge. I had a goal. I completed it. I wanted to do it before I was 40 and I did it when I was like 39 and a quarter or something like that.
Nice, nice. That's awesome.
But the thing about it is just being able to travel the country and I talked about being out east where people are doing oil, or I go to Arizona and like people are looking at you like, what are you talking about, a boiler? We don't have those
What's
unless they're in the
combustion?
more commercial or institutional, right? Like those aren't. So I think it's a learning experience for me. Everywhere I get to go, I get to learn something. And if I don't get to learn something, then I would call that a very unsuccessful trip for me.
Nice.
Because, yeah. And, it doesn't matter if you're East Coast, West Coast, people don't think Indiana has a whole lot of things that might be interesting. And we just named off like 4 or 5 people that are at least here that are interesting.
Yep.
But you don't realize what you don't know if you've never gone and seen it. So if anybody ever wants to, like, I will talk to you about test instruments all day long, but I will also talk to you about travel all day long. And we'll throw in some music too while we're at it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're always out having fun. That's great. You have a great
Yeah.
personality and you enjoy interacting with people. And I think that's what makes you a great trainer. Speaking of that, top 25 last year.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. 2024. It's technically the 2025 year. So,
That's
I get to hold on to it for a couple,
nice.
couple more months before the next list comes out.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome. That was really cool to see.
but
A lot of great
I
names on the
was
list, and I was excited to see you on there.
Oh yeah, I was really humbled when I got the email that let me know that I was on the list, and I kept waiting for them to say, "Oh, we typed in the wrong name and you just popped up." Like I was like, "Surely that wasn't." And then, I was ecstatic about that. I will say I was the only woman that has made the list so far, so hopefully for 2026 we get that changed around. But we had been talking about it when we were at the symposium at some of the after things, and then I show up at the tactical awards, and you're nominated. Your podcast is in the top 3. We had Megan from Mechanical Environments that was hanging out with us. She was in the top 3, and it was just absolutely amazing. And I love celebrating that. But I also know that there's a lot of people who don't also have the same platforms that we've been able to create to get to some of those places.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. Um I enjoy just showing off what I do and highlighting what I do and just let people know, there's other trades out there, there's other industries out there. I'm not hating on college. I say this all the time. It's, if you want to go to college and you know what you want to be, go for it. If you don't have an idea what you want to be, try some trades, try before you buy. See if you can do some work interviews. We had a last week's guest, Kelsey. She had a work interview, she called it, where she went and spent the day, wiring a house and fell in love with it. And she started, 2 days later, and that's been, 6 years. She's now a business owner. She's on her way to getting master's certified licensed electrician, and she's absolutely killing it. And there's plenty of opportunities out there. Do a ride along. You don't have to, go to trade school and then go do the job and find out you hate it. There's plenty of different courses or paths to take to get into trades or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and I think it's different, right? So I didn't graduate college, but I did go to college for quite a while, for sales and marketing.
Mm.
And I worked in sales and I worked in management, and I work with our marketing team. So I guess, I kind of wound up in the same trajectory. You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yep.
And the other thing, though, I know we're not too dissimilar in ages there, but they didn't really talk about trade schools.
No.
And I don't know about you, but I had to take a whole bunch of. Did they give you career aptitude tests at your high school?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember any of the jobs that they told you that you were going to be prepared for?
I don't even think I looked at it. I think I just threw it away.
Oh,
I,
I'm really sad. I've been looking for mine
uh,
because it was so bad and so misjudged on what I should do. I don't know. We also had to take the military career aptitude
mhm.
test. They decided I'd be a really good car mechanic in the military,
Nice.
which is not quite where I wanted to be at, 17 years old. But I had some of the strangest things, and I'll tell you, and that's why I wish I had this, that I could find it for you. One of them that they told me, none of them were in the trades except for the military wanted me for auto mechanics. But the strangest one that popped up, and I don't know, funeral attendant.
What in the world? That's wild.
Do, I was like, what? You just professionally attend funerals? Like, they didn't give you any, like, clarification,
Explanation.
So imagine 17-year-old, like, this sounds like a terrible job.
I
Had they
think.
have said you should have gone into teaching, training, something. But a funeral attendant is basically the person that helps you, that has the empathy, the ability to talk. So, you know, things I can do and try to do very successfully. But when you just see that, you're like, nope, that is not for me.
That's wild. That is wild. We had a guest on a while back. She's actually a commercial kitchen tech, and she was a diesel mechanic in the Army. And I was like, holy cow. And, everyone has their path. It's out there for everybody. I never thought I'd meet a diesel mechanic from the Army, doing what I do. But, she's out there and she's killing it in this industry. So,
I have met a lot of retired military in this industry.
oh, yeah. They're big.
Some of them were trained in it while they were in the military, but some of them, when they got out, they didn't know what they wanted to do, but they were like, trade seems like a good next step. Maybe they were, working with their hands, doing whatever it was. So diesel mechanic does actually make a
Mhm.
little bit of sense in the crossover, just for those mechanical abilities.
Yeah. In my side of it, there's a ton of retired naval people and some others that are in the tech support and training roles for these manufacturers. It's a ton of them.
Yeah.
And they're some of the best trainers I've ever met in my life. And maybe that goes back to what, EC said earlier about, they had some pretty crazy courses on how to be a trainer in the military. So, I've met guys that have, they worked in submarines, they were nuclear guys, and they come out and now they teach people how to fix equipment. So I guess there's some truth behind it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think though, especially in not being career military, when you come out, there's a lot of uncertainty of what can I do in a civilian world when I get out of there,
Mm-hmm.
because the structure and the routine are very, very different.
Yeah, that's for sure. My cousin, he worked on a lot of he was Air Force, but he was like a big mechanic and big design guy, and he worked on all of like the new stuff. And he had a job lined up like 3 years before he left to go to work for, I forget who it was, on some special project they had. They were working on something for the military. Like, he still had 3 years left of his contract, and like, oh, as soon as you're gone, you can come here and we'll pay you this amount of money. Stupid amount of money.
Mhm.
I'm like, that's cool, man.
Yeah. But I also know that, like, at 18 years old, I wasn't ready for military. And I think it's really hard, though. And I think that even goes back to some of the trades, though, because we've talked about a lot of people who didn't just jump into the trades right after they got out of high school, because I think there's part of finding who you are and what works for you, right? So most people at 18 don't really know what they want to do. And so sometimes that college route, though, buys them that time to kind of figure out what they're doing, rather than jumping in full force to something. So
sweet. So we're coming up on some time here, and I don't want to keep going.
yeah,
We'll just keep going all night because I know how we are.
we could.
Where can people find you as far as training? Is your training stuff listed on UEi's website? Where's that at?
So a lot of my training, I do have some of it online, that I've done over the years that has been specifically recorded. While I love recorded stuff, I also like doing it. It's doing it live. You can find versions of my courses, but it's a completely different ballgame when you get it live, because when you're doing it just to a camera, it's not as engaging. I like talking, but I don't like talking to myself. So you can reach out if you are interested in some more training. You can reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find on the Facebook and the LinkedIn. Not so active on your favorite, the Instagram or the TikTok or anything like that. It's fine. You can also reach out if you reach out to us via our website, or you reach out to us via our 800 number. So ueitest.com. There's a little contact us, and you can reach out to me there. They'll get me the information and I'll get back to you. Or you can call our 800 number that's on the website as well and talk to a live person, and they'll get you over to me. So I try to make myself as accessible because I think it is really important to have training, but I also really think that interaction, videos are good, but there's something about being able to actually interact with people, I think, is a little bit more helpful, and it helps gauge that training. So if you're out there listening and you want some, you can reach out to me and I will be happy to provide you with some more training about UEi Test Instruments.
Yeah, and in the description of this episode, I'll link to her LinkedIn, and I'll link to UEi's website and throw that out there. They're a really great company. I tag them every time I use a tool. I got to tag them. They do interact with me. They're great tools. I mean, I've had some negative interactions in the past. I think it was just mainly ignorance on my part, so I won't hold it against anybody. The older I get, the more I realize, when I complain about something, most of the time it's my own fault for not being trained on it, and I just want to complain about it because I don't know how to use it, or I used it improperly and didn't get the result I needed. So that's my big thing here lately. I'll post a picture of a piece of equipment I'm working on. Someone's like, that's junk. I'm like, well, what do you work on? Well, I work on this brand. I'm like, oh, so you're trained on that brand, but you don't know this brand, but this brand's junk because you don't work on it. No, there is some stuff out there that's junk, but, generally your big name manufacturer is not junk. You just don't understand how it works.
Yeah. And, I guess that keeps me going, though, because as I get to train people and explain what they're doing on their meters, what they're doing on their combustion analyzers, what they should be looking for, it is a really, really great thing. And one of the other things, though, is, I said we're second generation family owned. We own our own manufacturing, which has also allowed us to have a lot of quality control in what we are producing, right? Because you are no longer a line in a number of a manufacturer somewhere else. Like, you are the customer, and you're not just repackaging a name or something on a test instrument. We get to design them, and I'm really excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys come out with next. Like I said, my go-to combustion analyzer is that C161. My co-host Rich, my buddy, he's bought, I think, one or two of them for his trucks because they're simple. They're great price point. As long as you send them into warranty for 10 years is amazing. And they work great for what we need them for.
Yeah, and that's why I was fascinated when you started telling me it's all the same test instruments. And I've seen some of your videos using your C161, and I get a big smile. I think our social media person has reposted a few of the reels that you've posted up with it. So also, anybody out there listening, if you are using some of our test instruments, highly recommend tag us. We are actually, as UEi Test Instruments, on the socials. They love reposting it. We love seeing the tools in action. So always feel free to tag us. We love to see it. And The other cool thing, though, I got to tell you, like, we are in a time of technology. I said you could call our 800 number. We actually have a live people who are answering our 800 number about 12 hours a day.
Nice.
So if you don't like always having to send the emails, we actually back all of our stuff. You run into questions, you can call our tech support line, and a live person will actually chat with you. In fact, even the little chat function on our website, there's a real person behind that. It's not auto generated. There is actually a live person who will answer those questions during certain hours for you. So I think that's really cool that, it's a nice bridge, because as much as I like technology, I like talking to people.
That's cool. All right, I
Yeah.
am getting off here, but I really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, I am going
Yeah.
to tag your LinkedIn. I'm going to tag UEI, and I'll tag you, UEI, and all the promo posts and everything coming out. If you get a chance and you need to learn anything about UEI, reach out. She is a wealth of knowledge. She loves the tools. She loves to explain it and show people. And I've learned some stuff from her that I didn't know about. So I appreciate you coming on and just talking. We talked a little bit about tools, but a lot about everything else, and I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I look forward. We'll just have to do another episode, is all that means.
Yeah, I need to figure out what I got to install at some place that's not open and just sneak you in there and be like, hey, this is how I use this tool.
Yeah, hey, I would love that. We'll talk more about that. Maybe they'll let me go if I sign a waiver or something. We'll chat later.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks for
Okay.
having me.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.